RuneFest has brought a lot of exciting news for this year, however, and perhaps the biggest one was Leagues. For RuneScape 3, Leagues is a temporary game mode where you have much better drop rates, enhanced XP gains, and very powerful buffs called relics. I have seen a lot of discussions on Leagues for RuneScape 3, and I am here to shoot all the hype down. Okay, maybe not like shoot all the hype down, but talk about things I think are important. If you don't know, I have played all 5 old school RuneScape leagues, and yes, including the Twisted one, so I have a bit of experience with them. As a result, I want to go over some of the things I would like to see, and give a bit of context as to how our old school RuneScape slowly developed leagues over time, and how that changed. Now, I have been saying that RuneScape 3 should get leaks for at least like a few months now. I have made rambles on it and I think it would be super beneficial for the game. But why? It takes plenty of dev time and it's a temporary game mode. Isn't that a waste of resources all for, well, content that is going to be dead content since it's going to be removed from the game? Well, yeah, kinda, but also no. A lot of the benefits don't exactly come from the leagues itself, but from what leagues ends up doing or causing rather. For starters, leagues is amazing for both viewership of the game, which can get new players interested, and player count. Whenever leagues comes around to old school RuneScape, it always sees a spike in players. I don't think I need to tell you that RuneScape 3 has been stagnant for a while, so getting new eyes on the game and showcasing the cool things it has to offer is fundamental for its success. But that's not all. Another benefit is for the players that already play the game. You get to experience the game in an entirely different and new way that you haven't before. This allows players to not feel as burned out by the game, since they can take a mini break pretty much from the normal version and change the perspective from goals you want to achieve to just having fun, because Leagues is all about having fun regardless of what you achieve or not. Because, well, it's a temporary game mode. Even if you don't achieve what you want, it's gonna be gone anyway. So there's no... or rather, okay, there is a little bit of pressure in achieving goals, but there also isn't, because it's more about just enjoying the game that it's gonna be gone, rather than trying to focus on achieving things in it. But I'm not done yet. One last major thing that Leagues actually does is pretty much just being a testing ground. Some relics and changes are required for Leagues, and sometimes players actually do end up enjoying such changes. For instance, in old school RuneScape, one of the relics was that your Clue Scrolls caskets would actually stuck after completing them, and well, people liked that enough that it was eventually introduced to the game. On top of that, since you give tasks for players to complete, players have to sometimes indulge in content they might not in the main game, which leads to certain pieces of content actually being highlighted, which can give fundamental feedback to Jagex in order for them to actually improve it and add some quality of life changes. Overall, Leagues actually does plenty of positive things for the game, which is why I don't really think it's a waste of dev time, despite it being a temporary game mode. With Leagues being well known in old school RuneScape, I've seen a lot of discussions of cool area combos and how we should be dividing the areas, and I kinda want to oppose myself to that. One of the most important things to understand about Leagues is that they didn't always have region lock. In fact, only the second Leagues actually had region lock. The fourth Leagues was a rerun, so it's not exactly a new league, so I wouldn't consider it as having a region lock by default, and the decision to actually keep region lock only came during the 5th installment. But why is this? Well, every league is supposed to have a different theme, a different mechanic, essentially to keep things fresh. For Leagues 1, it was all in Zea. You couldn't change regions or anything like that, everyone was just stuck in Zea doing Zea content. Leagues 2 took that a step further and made it so you could actually unlock different regions, which essentially allowed the people to unlock up to 5 regions and sort of do the combos that are so well known nowadays. The third was about unlocking skills and unlocking quests. Essentially, by doing certain tasks and achieving thresholds, you would be allowed to unlock skills or just skip quests if you wanted. So, as you can see, they always had a different theme. After a while, people did enjoy the region locking mechanic, and thus Jagex made the decision to make it into a base mechanic while still offering something unique for the league. And in the 5th installment, despite the region locking and that being the base mechanic, they still offered echo bosses and echo gear. So, why am I opposed to that? Well, I mostly have two major reasons. First of all, this is RuneScape 3's first leagues, and to be frank, I would rather them go lightly on it and not be as impressive as old school RuneScape, while actually creating the groundwork that will be used for future leagues, as opposed to trying to be super ambitious and failing while doing so. Again, the first old school RuneScape leagues was all in a single region, an underdeveloped region, might I say, because back then wasn't all that developed. In fact, the reason as to why leagues even came to Zea to be Zea only was because Jagex wanted players to do content in the area because the area wasn't that popular to begin with, which provided to them incredible, neither than fundamental feedback for them to improve the area as a whole. On top of that, having a single region was also much easier to do, and leagues are honestly a ton of work. So I would rather them go more light in the first installment to make sure things run smoothly, rather than just let the ship crash. With how many old school RuneScape players seem interested in trying leagues, I would rather them leave with a good impression of the game, instead of being put off by a potential dumpster fire. That actually leads me to the second reason. A lot of new players, especially old school RuneScape ones, are going to try Runescape 3. For a first leagues, I would rather Jagex try and showcase as much cool content as they can, instead of locking people into certain regions and inevitably having players not familiar with the game do content that is more on the outdated side. Runescape 3 isn't as good at doing facelifts of old content as much as old school Runescape is, because of development cycles, where Runescape 3 tries to always focus on the big new thing, while old school Runescape focuses on the game as a whole and improving all of its parts. So yeah, there's that going for it. Runescape 3 also has been around for way longer, meaning that there's also way more content that has been accounted for. So as a result, and when you combine all of this, yeah, would you rather have region lock and have players stumble upon, older content that isn't even that good for the game, or have them not do that? I also have actually a third minor concern, being the burnout. It seems to me from the announcement that RuneScape 3 and old school RuneScape leagues are happening back to back. As a result, I would love for them to do something different to, well, differentiate themselves from old school RuneScape. If I need to play two leagues and they both offer the same mechanical theme, I'll probably just not bother with RuneScape 3 and just play old school RuneScape, since, well, it's already way more mature, it's already way more polished, and it has the same mechanic of region locking anyway. There's also the issue of popularity of region locking in RuneScape 3 as opposed to old school RuneScape, where old school RuneScape region locked accounts are actually super popular and people love them, while in RuneScape 3 I just don't see the same translation in the interests of the general player base. But I'm not even gonna go through that, since honestly this might actually be a very good chance to show the general RuneScape 3 players that these types of game modes are actually cool, and honestly I only have to gain from that. So I would rather them leaving the region locked for these leagues. That doesn't mean we can't do anything with regions, just that I don't think they should be as advanced as old school RuneScape for the first league. In the future, sure, but for now I would love to see something more akin to having only certain regions unlocked, those being the same for everyone, or allowing regions to be unlocked as you complete tasks, but you can unlock every region. This way things are easier to work on, since there is less variance to account for because of the linearity, and players don't feel as overwhelmed or as lost, since content is actually paced out. But that's for the region locking issue. What about the rest? Let's touch a bit on the tasks now. This is actually one of the main things that makes leagues fun. Tasks in leagues are an extension of achievement diaries, so you don't want to have tasks that are super grindy or, well, super boring. You want tasks that allow players to interact with content they haven't before, tasks that are fun, tasks that teach players something, or just overall they are interesting. Seriously, tasks are fundamental to leagues, but at the same time they are so easy to fuck up. Just go to old school RuneScape and see tasks from leagues 4 and 5, which I think were the best examples of tasks you can have in the game. They don't require immense grinds. Well, I mean, for the most part they don't, but I'm sure as fuck not gonna do 100 Winter Thought KC just for leagues, but outside of that, they're not insane. Believe me, they used to be way worse grinds. They're also fun, and they pushed me to make content that I usually wouldn't in the main game, such as, for example, certain minigame content or Pre-Maven Agility Dungeon, for example. So yeah, basically, these are how you unlock the relics, so it's honestly imperative that you get them right. Speaking of the relics, they are also very important for leagues and can make or break the interest of the players. Relics as a whole should really be doing two things. Number one, enhance or overpower an activity because, well, it's already enjoyable in the main game. For instance, people love clue scrolls, so some of the best relics in leagues have been, well, doing clue scrolls or being clue scroll related. These relics have ranged from allowing to stack clue scrolls easily, to increase their drop rate, offering max rewards per clue, lowering the amount of steps required, or enhancing the rare rewards you can get from them. As you can see, all of these things might actually trivialize certain aspects of the gameplay. The fun of leagues is in that trivialization. Basically, it's fun for it to be trivial. Secondly, relics should either change the way you interact with the game or offer some strategy. Usually the game revolves around gathering supplies to train your skills, for example. Well, what if we had a relic that made everything in the shops free? Maybe now you'll want to, train your skills through the shops instead of how you normally do in the game. Yet again, we are trivializing an aspect of the game, being the gathering of resources, but in doing so, you're allowing players to experiment the game or experience the game in a different way. Another example would be, for example, making a relic that allows you to combine random herbs and random secondaries to get a random 2-dose potions. Makes herb lore super easy and allows you to get very OP potions very early on with maybe just a guam and, some chocolate dust or something, but again, these are the types of relics you want to offer, relics that make things more fun and trivialize an aspect of the game in order to offer players enjoyment. Dodgy deals makes thieving really stupid, honestly, but it's super fun to see you being able to thieve up to 15 NPCs at the same time. And honestly, it also makes it amazing for clues, so say if you want to do clues, I can just combo that with a clue relic, and honestly, I'm fucking living. The objective is to trivialize the game to allow people to enjoy the game with overpowered things. Think of relics as a bonus level you unlock after beating the game. It's not supposed to be difficult, it's supposed to be fun. Obviously, there's a lot you can do with relics, but these are just, the two principles to keep in mind when designing them. Another issue is the balancing, which is very important, as some of the past leagues have made certain relic tiers pretty bad to choose from, or completely doomed the game for some others. And shout out to everyone who in the second leagues decided to not choose Last Recall because they didn't think that Last Recall was actually overpowered, because they thought surely it has to have some sort of cooldown or something, right? Like surely. And then you're just doomed because you don't have Last Recall. Yeah. So this is a thing you'll simply have to learn over time, honestly, because, relics should get more OP as the higher tier you achieve, but you also need to make entry relics enjoyable, otherwise people don't feel that magic of choosing a relic. Dividing the tiers between gathering relics, transportation relics, and slayer production clue scroll relics choice is also something you should do. Old school RuneScape eventually adjusted to that, and it's simply the best choice because it gives you a little relic in every single bit of gameplay you can, or at least generally speaking, in a bit of gameplay or in general areas of gameplay you want to take part on. Relics should peak in terms of being OP at the 2nd/3rd relic unlocks, at least from the relic itself. Sometimes certain relics that are later on, for example the spec relic, can be incredibly overpowered and complete your combo, but by itself it's not completely overpowered. The overpowered individual relic should come at the 2/3 of relic unlocks. Yes, of course, that the later relics should still be overpowered, and it would maybe even make more sense to make the individual relics overpowered in that tier, but we also have to think how many players eventually are gonna get there. Chances are players are going to struggle to get there. I know I did during the first leagues, so you want them to have access to the very big thing 2/3 in, while also making sure that relics post that OP that OP relic just combo with that relic, as opposed of being individually OP on their own. Outside of that, you can do almost anything with relics and it will be fun. Just make sure players don't feel like they missed out by picking a relic over another, because again, it wasn't fun to play the game without Last Recall. Speaking to now the combat, because obviously we gotta talk about combat, the biggest thing RuneScape 3 has to offer is the combat. With EOC, this completely changed how you approached killing NPCs. The good thing about it, about EOC specifically, is how much flexibility it actually gives you. The first theme for these leagues, however, should be more focused on allowing you to enhance either EOC or Legacy. With old school RuneScape players, eventually playing this version of the game, you might want to make Legacy more viable as part of your gameplay in case old school RuneScape players don't end up enjoying EOC all that much. For Legacy, I think a lot of the relics are kind of obvious. In fact, these Echo Leagues have a combat mastery system alongside the regions and tasks. You can do the same if you want, but have Legacy versus EOC. But personally, I think you don't even need to. Most of the relics here should just focus on basic things like increasing accuracy or damage. Having attack speed was by far one of the most things in old school RuneScape when it came to combat relics. You can also play with like effects, like the bleed or prior regen, HP regen based on damage. That relic was actually completely overpowered, but man, it made the game so much fucking fun, especially when it came to try to learn certain things. I used it a lot to make my Chambers of Xeric mechanics better, even though I don't do Chambers of Xeric that much anymore. But yeah, for EOC you can be a bit more creative and either just give people certain abilities that are OP, enhance current abilities, or give current abilities different effects that can be comboed with other abilities. Personally, for these leagues, what I would actually love to see is a pseudo-invention system, but for abilities. Imagine being able to augment your current abilities with just stupid effects. Like, imagine having Dragon Breath ability, and then you can augment it with Resonant, or a stun, or both. Right? Yeah, like it's really overpowered, but I think it would highlight how fun it can be to combo abilities for just absolutely insane damage in the game. Because right now I feel that combat is a bit neglected by a lot of people. They just sort of use Revolution, and this would just encourage people to actually manually cast their abilities without being super overwhelming. Can also just work with Revolution, so, again, no problem there, although it should still push people to the more manual. So yeah, I mean, obviously you would be neglecting Legacy here a bit, but I think for first leagues I would be fine with that. EOC is also, in my honest opinion, the biggest selling point of RuneScape 3, because that is where the biggest distinction between old school RuneScape and RuneScape 3 exists, so I think they should focus on exactly that. Just make something that is fun to use, which will probably also OP as hell, but again, leagues are supposed to be fun, and since you're gonna have a lot of old school players enjoying the game, your idea should exactly be, or at least your focus should actually be in showcasing how fun EOC can actually be, because that's the thing that usually gets trashed when it comes to old school RuneScape players' opinions. Now, with all of that out of the way, I want to talk about some, minor miscellaneous things that I'm kind of expecting for leagues. First of all, don't forget to fix the fucking shops. One of the major things old school RuneScape has that RuneScape 3 doesn't is the fact that RuneScape 3 shops, while individual, are painfully fucking slow at restocking. Some only restock daily. Change these for leagues. Seriously, I cannot imagine playing region locked Iron Man without an access to fucking good shops. No. Just fucking no. Right? Secondly, and honestly on the back of that, Banker's Note I think is a must. Yeah, sure, it's gonna trivialize a lot of things in the game, but honestly, Banker's Note, I have picked this in 2 different leagues, and it has been absolutely, absolute peak league content, and I would love for it to be in RuneScape 3 as well. Another thing is, don't make FOMO or discontinued item rewards from leagues. I hate these and I have shown my displeasure towards discontinued items several times. If you are going to offer any type of reward, just copy what old school RuneScape did, in that you have a league shop with points you can spend after every league, meaning you can always buy rewards you missed or just trade them to other players. I swear, if I see discontinued item rewards, I'm just gonna... some of my brain cells are just gonna absolutely die, right? Which actually, speaking of, it's an amazing place to actually offer the Fresh Start Worlds discontinued rewards or even inverted capes. Seriously, I really hope I don't need to make an entire video ranting about this, but discontinued items just aren't healthy for the game, nor do they make players love the game more for it. If anything, it creates more annoyance and disregard for these types of events, because, well, most people just are not gonna give a shit since they're not gonna achieve the item anyway, and it just creates this divide between elitist players that think they're better than everyone else because they have a discontinued item versus the players that don't. So yes, please, whatever you do, don't introduce discontinued items to the league's reward shop or league's rewards or whatever. Don't make the same mistake you did with fresh start worlds. Another thing is to make sure to give plenty of time to players. Usually old school RuneScape leagues runs for 6 to 8 weeks, although the first one ran for a whole 3 months. But yeah, 6 to 8 weeks should actually be enough time to essentially do everything you need. A lot of players aren't familiar with leagues in RuneScape 3, so I think that you should also be willing to maybe increase it a little bit if you need to, because yeah, a lot of players are also just first timing RuneScape 3 as a whole, not even just leagues, so just make sure that you give everyone enough time to understand what leagues is, enough time to understand how RuneScape 3 works above everything, and again, like 6 to 8 weeks should be more than enough. Personally, I think I would go for 6 because of old school RuneScape leagues happening right after. You don't want to burn players out, okay? Actually, speaking of time and speaking of old school RuneScape, don't overlap this with old school RuneScape leagues. Like, out of all of the things you could do to shoot yourself in the foot, this is to be the equivalent of doing it with a bazooka. Like, if you overlap this release with old school RuneScape leagues, no one's gonna give a shit about RuneScape 3 leagues. No one's gonna fucking care. The vast majority of players are just gonna be playing old school RuneScape because, well, old school leagues have more content, they're more polished, they know better what they're doing, and chances are the theme is gonna be better because they have been doing this shit for ages. So please, whatever you do, for the most benefit that leagues can create for RuneScape 3, whatever you do, don't overlap both of them. It's fine if one is, comes before the other, but personally, RuneScape 3 leagues should come before old school RuneScape, because old school RuneScape is guaranteed for leagues to succeed. RuneScape 3, we don't know, so you don't want to have players burn out before RuneScape 3 leagues and before giving it a shot, so before old school RuneScape league starts, and not during, please. But yeah, that's pretty much it for it. Well, look, I could have gone way more in depth and even designed some relics and whatnot. I mean, technically that Herblore relic, I did design it, but yeah, I just kind of wanted a more generalist video going over what I'm expecting for RuneScape 3 leagues, or I want it to essentially be developed, or, the things I think the devs should be looking out for, rather than just trying to make an absolute designing RuneScape 3 leagues type thing, because honestly I'm already busy with other projects and other videos, so I didn't want to add another one to the table, especially because I do want to get back to Nobanque, so yeah, this video was a bit more on the generalist side, but yeah, hopefully it was enough for me to explain everything. Hopefully the points were coherent. I haven't made a content discussion video in a very long while, so yeah, I really hope that this wasn't too rough around the edges, comparatively speaking to what I used to do. And I'll see you in the Dungeoneering video, which I have to pause on, because I was struggling a little bit with it, so I have no idea when it will come out. Apologies for that. I'm not gonna make any more dates or anything like that, because I don't wanna keep fucking, just talking about making promises and then ruining them, basically. That's the TLDR. So yeah, see you.